is Jessica with Dining Traveler. I'm at La Cosecha at Serenata with AJ, Andra Johnson, and she is the beverage director here at Serenata and also the founder of Back to Black and White Plates, Black Faces. And I love everything that you do. I kind of stalk you on Instagram, so I was like, I have to interview you. And first of all, you've been around the DC dining scene for a very long time. So how did you get started?
Most definitely. So it's probably about 20 years ago.
Okay.
I don't want to date myself. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to age myself, but no, I was about 14 and my friend had gotten a job and I was like, can you hook me up? And she said, yeah, sure. It happened to be a Chili's in Rockville, in Whitefoot. So everybody knows that. I was a host, started out as a host and then became like a busser and then a to-go food server. And it just sort of culminated into this this passion for the fast pace, for the camaraderie, and things like that. And I just got hooked. And so from then on, like it was like, oh, I need a job. I went straight to the restaurant industry no matter what. And it sort of evolved from, the fast-paced, high volume to find coffee sales and things like that. And I learned how to become a barista. And then as I got older, then it was hopping into the service side, hopping into the bar side, front of house management, things like that. And then I just sort of took what I knew from the fast-paced, fast-casual kind of situation and wanted to get more into fine dining. And that's sort of how I ended up in some spots like Muscle Bar and at Le Diplomat and at Iola. And from there, it just sort of took me to, I think I found another sort of facet, which was that I enjoyed creating projects and I enjoyed opening projects. And so I found out about a restaurant called Macon through my friend Darlin, and she was like, look, you should just go and check it out. And it ended up being a place I stayed for almost 4 years at this point, and was able to invest some money in that and create and be a part of the bar team, go from AGM to GM, and then again taking on more of like a partnership role and an ownership role in that. And then I kind of never looked back from there. And it was like, this is what I know I want to do in terms of being able to foster community and give back what I learned throughout 20 years of doing oddball stuff, right?
And how do you balance that? Because when I look at your bio, you've done a lot of leadership positions like GM, assistant GM, and for those who are not familiar with the restaurant industry, that involves a lot of numbers and schedules and managing people, and some volatile people. But then you have this like very creative side, like I come to Serenata, I buy drinks, and you're like super creative in what you make. Like for those people that are creative, but then they also want to pursue a leadership role, like what do you recommend for them?
So I honestly struggle with it myself, right?
So do I.
Purposefully try to spend as little time as possible on my computer, which at this point is inevitable. Like I have to, right? Social is sort of taken over a lot of things. But when it comes to sort of balancing that, it's really kind of understanding what you need and looking for the right people that can support you when you do have to take those breaks to be on the computer. Because outside of that, my style is leading by example. So if I ask you to be here until 2 o'clock, I'm going to be here until 2 o'clock. If I ask you to be here at 8 a.m., I'm going to be here at 8 a.m. And really sort of leading by example has to have been a lot easier for me rather than sort of leading by a whole bunch of paperwork and what's in the handbook. And I think in that way, I feel like I've been able to sort of give myself room to be a little bit more creative, but also making sure that I've surrounded myself with the right people that want to learn more, that want to do more, that kind of want to get in my brain and help me reach the end goal. Because at the end of the day, everybody wants to be a part of the space that's doing the coolest stuff.
Nobody wants to do the cleaning in the background. No.
Definitely not. So get yourself an amazing accountant and 100% hire people that see your vision and that you work well with.
And speaking of vision, so back in DC last summer, where there is, there's always been a call, talk about racial injustice, but obviously it became more prevalent last year, and you started something called Back to Black. And what inspired you? Like, what kickstarted that, and what have you done with that?
So 2 major things I think kickstarted that. I think once everything happened with the George Floyd incident, which sort of took on a life of its own, and also shed light on a lot of other things as well. People were able to sit at home, so they were they had time to actually pay attention to what was happening. And I got a phone call from a friend, and she was like, look, I don't know what to do, but I have some money socked away, and I need you to just go out here and do something. And I was like, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting ready for brunch service, so I'll figure it out, and I'll get back to you. But you know what I mean, hold on to your money, like whatever. And you know, she's just genuinely worried about her kids and like how they were gonna grow up in this, and that's totally fair. And I think by like 3 p.m. I was calling my mom, I was calling my friends, like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. And I had had a little bit of experience doing fundraising before in my spaces, like making, like we would just put on a cocktail and give the percentage of sales or give all the sales to different initiatives, but really sort of trying to figure that out on a larger scale and also on a COVID scale was
I know that you guys were
difficult.
doing this before, you know, when the pandemic began, you guys were already doing stuff like this.
Yep. And so that was probably the first thing. I think the model of that and where the idea to sort of just give back was that I was stuck at work. There was nothing that I couldn't really move. I couldn't, like if I wasn't at work, then there's no opening the business because it's me and another person. You know what I mean? And so I had to be here, which means I couldn't go downtown, which means I couldn't protest. It means I couldn't support my colleagues, I couldn't support my friends, and I felt like I couldn't support the movement. And so in that, with my hands being tied, I knew that there was something, but it was like, what is it? If you need the answers to anything, like look within, right? I can make cocktails, I can run programs, and I have somewhat of a platform. Let's see if we can't just raise some money. And you know, the first one ended up raising over $11,000, and that was amazing. You know what I mean? Because I felt like there were other people, let alone my organizing team, were amazing, but all the people that ordered also, I feel like, felt like their hands were tied. And there was something that they could do, but they don't know what. They didn't feel like it was their space. And so this was an outlet not only for us as bartenders and creatives, but also for the people of the city to actually go out there and do something and support people who are out there on the front lines.
You have a book project that you're working on called White Plates, Black Faces, and also you can look it up on Instagram that you do a lot of content there. And one of the things that I find interesting in DC is that, you know, and I lived in and out of the area for 20 years, and, you know, it's a black city, and but then like when you go to the dining scene, it's not black. So I mean, let's be honest. So is that your inspiration for doing something like that?
I mean, White Plates, Black Faces, I mean, it's been 4 years in March that I've been working on this and changing the concept and changing what I felt like it needed to actually be. And again, as of right now, it's more multifaceted than just here's a book in front of you, because I don't think that that's actually helpful. One of the words in the title is faces, and so being able to add the stories with the faces and getting those pictures and getting those visuals is very important, because as you said, you don't see us. You see drops of culture sort of sprinkled on top of a concept. They're like, oh, we're gonna open up in an urban neighborhood and play urban music, but have no people from the neighborhood working there and no patrons that are there either, because that's not your demographic. So when I was creating White Plates, Black Faces, it was because I was seeing like list after list, article after article. There were no black people being recognized in this, not owners, not as executive chefs, not leading programs. And you know, once you started going back and back in the issue, like, oh wow, wow, you know, you take, you know, if you could, you know, create your list of like your favorite places to go in the city. For me, those places include multifaceted, multi-ethnic types of places where it seems like, you know, the people who write about them or something like that don't really sort of reach out into that pathway. And that was sort of difficult to see, but there's seeing it and making a statement on it, and then there's actually trying to figure out why. And I will say that through just being able to start that conversation and reaching out to food writers and having to go a little bit deeper with them, it is really refreshing to see that in the past year or so, a lot of people have sort of taken the extra step to jump out of the comfort zone and want to be that first person to sort of reach out and meet these restaurants in the middle, right? We may not have the same aesthetics, it may not be reaching the same people, but the business is here, the talent is here, everybody's out here working hard and trying to support their families.
Need that encouragement.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, a lot of times people are like, oh, you know, I don't need to be featured in this magazine, or I don't need to be featured in this newspaper, but at the end of the day, it's a business and you have to make money, and if you get featured, let's say in the Washington Post, people are going to come and buy your food.
100%, you know, and that's the thing that is so missing. It's like, it's not that they're not good, it's not that they're different. It's not like Black-owned restaurants have a handicap, right? It is nice to know that you're supporting Black-owned and that you're supporting local and things like that. But at the end of the day, the quality, the standard, the service, they're all the same, and you won't know that unless you go. And so that is obviously one component. The other component is, you know, that second level of dining, right? The fine dining level, where you just don't, it's just not, it seems to just not be in the culture. I was doing a project with a couple of friends, and we were trying to figure out other fine dining chefs that were Black and female in Washington, D.C. And we just kind of like, stopped. And she's a chef, and she's Black, and she does fine dining. And we were like, wow, there's like, can we go outside of Washington, D.C.? And I was like, well, not really. And it was so tough. And so those are the things that we know that we can reach for and we can strive for, and that we definitely want to see. But I would be remiss to say that there hasn't been marked change in terms of the way that Black-owned businesses and, you know, Black managers and bartenders and things like that have been represented and given that platform and that voice. So, baby steps.
And that's what I was going to ask. Like, where do you see the evolution of that here in Washington, D.C.? Because I moved back almost 9 years ago, and I've seen that evolution where I've seen more people of color, like not only in the back cooking, but, you know, in the front of the house. And how do you see that evolution?
That's tough, only because it's baby steps. Only because because this is such a multifaceted issue. Obviously, the representation and people wanting to make the choice that, you know, white girl, blonde hair, blue eyes isn't what everybody wants to see in the front of the restaurant. We're gonna go for, you know, tattoos and dreads and from Southeast. And we're going to put them in here because they actually know what they're doing too. And that's a choice. But then there's also the fact of generational wealth and ownership and capital. Right? If you don't have the capital to put in, then it's a little bit difficult to get something started for yourself. A restaurant, you need $1 million. A sit-down, full-service restaurant, you need $1 million. Or you at least need to know a few people who can put that together for you. And when it comes down to it, because that wealth necessarily isn't passed down from generation to generation in the Black community, it's a little bit harder to even say, like, I know somebody that can get me money, right? And then you have to step out of your comfort zone and then head to a bank. Historically, banks and Black people get along. And so it really is about sort of being able to position yourself in the right way to talk to people and reach out to access the things that you need. Now, again, COVID pivot has been amazing. Startup costs, overhead costs, boom, labor costs for the most part, because it's you putting out your product. You know, boom, like so much lower. And you don't have to pay for seats and tables and chairs and, you know, copious amounts of licensing just to get open. And so I think this is definitely
a good time.
A very good time. If you have the money, right? Because at the end of the day, you get to see how your concept could evolve, right? If you pick up enough following, when it comes time for brick and mortar stuff, you have boom, a whole portfolio, a whole, you know, 6 to 8 to maybe a year's worth of numbers that show that your business model is viable. And then you have something to show and prove when you want to walk into a bank, or you need to talk to an investor, or you're looking to get funding and things like that. So it's very, I mean, the opportunity right now is super, super endless, but I don't think that anybody can do it just on their own. It really is about having that.
Mentor or somebody that you look back and you're like, this person was a person that sat down with me and was like, listen, AJ, this is what you need to do, or, you know, kind of at least like, you know, we always have that person that's like, oh, here, go this way. Who's that person for you?
I have two probably. Darlene Kula, like 100%. She runs the beverage program. I think it's the Succotash group. She does all those. She was the first person that got me into wine, but also like recognized that I had a place here, and she took a chance on me first in the fine dining setting. She taught me everything that I needed to know, and took the time to. She didn't have to. So definitely her, definitely Gino Alexeyev. He, from a management standpoint down to a beverage standpoint, and really sort of figuring out how to own my space as a leader. He definitely helped me there. I would also say that when it comes to just sort of like pushing my goal and understanding what I need to do to put myself out there, Alicia Gibb, actually, who is a brand ambassador, but is also a very good friend of mine. She doesn't sugarcoat it. And it's been less of like, oh, I support you, that's cool, like whatever you want to do 100%. It's been like, well, is that really a good idea? And what are you going to do to make sure that it's foolproof? And really not sort of letting me get away with, just for lack of a better word, half-assing what I could, you know what I mean? It's got to be the best of the best all of the time. And so I think between those three, they've really sort of given me a lot of strength and support and knowledge that I needed to sort of put things together the right way.
And for people that, even in these crazy times, are like, I want to get into the restaurant industry eventually, I want to open my own place, or I want to get into management, what do you advise them, especially folks of color that are trying not to just stay in the back in the kitchen, but work their way up to management?
Yeah, I think first, find a good team. Find a good team. There's no building a restaurant concept, front of house, back of house, without finding people that understand what you're trying to do and see your vision with you, but also believe in it too, and not trying to change it so much where it's not you when you walk in the door of your place. That is super, super important too. I would definitely reach out to different organizations. I am a co-founder of D&B Black Restaurant Week as well, and what we try to do is provide access and resources to grants, grant writers, funding, things like that to help you from from the bottom to the top, to getting you into that brick and mortar. And the third, honestly, lean on the people in your community. Restaurants don't succeed without that back and forth, right? And so if you've got an idea, if you've got something going on, it's not going to be annoying, I promise. If you've got a business, no, I promise. Tell them about it. Ask them to share it. Ask them to put everything they can into being your mouthpiece, okay? Because the more people that know about it, the bigger sort of following you get, and then people can't wait for you to be there.
Like amplify.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It's never a process that you do on your own. And honestly, like look at other places and try to reach out to other business owners. It's tough right now, but people have time. People have a lot of time, you know what I mean? And I don't mean to speak for everybody else, but a 10, 15-minute conversation, if you can pinpoint somebody that you've seen in the paper, you've seen on a blog or on social media, and you happen to walk into a place and they're there, hey, here's my information. I just wanted to let you know, I'm seeing what you're doing. I think it's amazing. I have this concept. If you had a second, can we talk it out, and can I sort of see how this could work, because I see what you're doing and it's successful. There's nothing wrong with that, right? The worst thing they could say is no, I don't have time. You know what I mean? That is literally the worst thing that they could do. So yeah, reaching out and going for that. Shoot your shot, as they say, shoot your shot.
Well, AJ, thank you so much. Like, I'm pumped up. I'm like,
let's get out there.
Not opening a restaurant, but I'm pumped up. Where can folks find you? You're in Serenata. You're everywhere. So Serenata, what else are you working on? Tell us.
So yes, I am at work all the time. So I'll be here at Serenata and our morning concept Zumo, anywhere from like 9 a.m. until like 11 p.m. every day, except for Mondays. That's my day off. Other than that, you can catch me on social. IG is White Plates Black Faces. You can also follow our Back to Black page at back2black_popup. D&B Black Restaurant Week is DMV BRW, and Serenata, obviously, serenatadc.com on the website and on IG.
Well, thank you so much, AJ, and now I'm going to have a cocktail.
Yes.
That's what we do.
She deserves a cocktail.
Bye.
Bye, guys.